mustache is this large, you can do that. You can have a little bit of stubble, and the stubble does not make the mustache fade, as we all know. I
Truer
think the only other
words.
change is, oh, sorry, yes,
True. I was
your
just gonna say,
words.
truer words have never been spoken.
The only other thing I'm going to do is, grow the hair out a little bit more, so it's somewhat of a fro, and then that's going to be it. I think. Lock it in, lock it in. We'll see how long it lasts.
Start the clock.
Start the clock, as we say often. The lighting in
So,
here is weird. This is my basement, as we know.
and it's been that way the entire time you've podcasted from your. Is it different? Did you change a bulb or
Yes.
something?
No, no, not really. It's just that where I'm seated, it's not, the light is like a little bit behind me rather than in front. So it's
You have
not
a bit of a
lighting me.
glow, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So just before I called, I got a call from my brother. This is I have lots of strange relationships with relatives. This is my stepbrother, Dan. Dan broke his shoulder.
He broke his shoulder.
Yeah, he was giving a lecture. He
On
lectured about
how not to break your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. No, he does a lecture about robots, and they have a little wooden maze that the robots go through, and he
Hmm.
tripped over the maze apparently, broke his shoulder.
I blame the robots.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, wait. Casualty number one. Hey, speaking about casualty number one, it's time for Ben gonna guess the news. Ben,
Bum 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 bum.
I've been watching a lot of the Blacklist lately, as you know.
Yeah.
And one of the things about the Blacklist is that there's a lot of who's zooming who, people making like thoughts that Mission Impossible kind of stuff. Hey, this guy is dead, but he really isn't dead because this person faked this person's death, so on and so forth.
Yeah, yeah.
Ben, what international incident are some people saying could be a false flag?
Why, that wouldn't happen to be the airplane carrying the leader of Wagner, the Russian anti-Putin group, that got shot down and killed the I can't pronounce his name, but the leader of Wagner and some of his lieutenants.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Wagner, I don't think they're actually Russian. I think that they're of a different nationality. I think that they're a mercenary group, and I think that they weren't necessarily anti-Putin. They were hired by Putin. Putin didn't pay them, and so
Well,
they
they
then
may not have
became
been
anti.
they may not have been anti-Putin in the way that, like, say, Ukrainians are, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there was a point in time when they were marching to Moscow, and it
Yep.
was a big thing, and
I think the guy
th-
from Belarus said that he brokered a peace. I want to
I
say.
don't remember how that ended, but again, since you bring that up, that is the first thing I thought of, because when the news came out yesterday that the plane was shot down and that this guy, the leader of Wagner, was on the passenger list, I'm like, well,
Yeah,
have they found a body yet?
yeah, 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 yeah. So that's number one. Number two, and Ben gonna guess the news. Um,
Bat in a thousand.
there's news about the South Pole, Ben.
News about the
But
South Pole.
it's tricky. It's a tricky thing. It's news about India and the South Pole, but I'm leaving something out.
Ah.
What am I leaving out, Ben?
Well, at first, when you mentioned the South Pole, I thought you were talking about how news came out that a bunch of this isn't it, but I'm even going to mention this, that
Oh yeah,
researchers in Antarctica started coming up with their own dialect when they were stationed in Antarctica for an extended period of time.
Interesting.
I did not read that article. I only saw the headline on Reddit. I'm like, that's all I need to know about this. But what you are talking about, sir, is India landed a lunar rover on the south pole of the moon. First time the humans have visited that part of the moon.
Correct. Yes.
As
very exciting.
as an addition to this, as a bonus point, Russia recently crashed their lunar explorer on the moon, probably quite by accident.
Surprisingly enough, on the passenger list of that Russian you could imagine. You gotta love it. You gotta.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's crazy. Here in Illinois, it is 100 degrees. Feels like 111. They say so. Craziness.
That
I will
dang
say this,
heat index.
When I lived in Illinois in the 80s, it was also 100 degrees for a couple of days. And at the time, the road outside of my house was tar and rocks.
Yeah.
And the tar on the road would bubble.
Yeah.
And you would go out there with a stick and you'd pop the bubbles on the road because it was fun.
There was I saw a video, I can't remember where this was, but somebody was like following a big truck on the freeway in like 110 degree heat or something, and you could see the rubber from the tires. You could see the rubber from the tires just like peeling off as the truck was going down the street. I was recently in Austin, Texas, and it was 104 degrees, the hottest it got down there.
Wow.
And it was I can handle the heat, right? Being outside was okay, for a limited amount of time. I wouldn't want to spend all day outside. It's the direct sunlight what gets me.
Yeah.
I can't be in direct sunlight in that kind of heat, or I will burst into flames.
Hey, okay. Here's a weird thing. It's Ben gonna guess the anecdote.
Ben gonna guess the anecdote. Bum, 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 bum.
So, Rob Reiner, director Rob Reiner.
Yes.
And this is going to tell me whether or not you've heard this anecdote before. Has a habit of doing something that is thought to be bad form. If you are a theater director, maybe not as much when you're a film director, but what is something that a theater director might do when giving you notes that would be thought of as bad?
I don't know this anecdote, but does he give line readings?
He gives line readings.
Okay.
So I saw an anecdote. Kevin Pollak was telling it. Kevin Pollak and Rob Reiner. If I say those two names together, what movie do you think of? And you may not think of it right away because he mentioned that he was the least popular person in this film.
I was Kevin Pollak in When Harry Met Sally?
No.
Okay.
Not that I know of. That's not the movie that we're talking about, is what I can say.
Okay. Did Kevin Pollak have a small uncredited role in The Princess Bride?
No. Here's the thing. You might not be thinking of it as a Rob Reiner film because it's not necessarily that funny.
Jesus. Yeah, you're right. I cannot.
Okay. I'm gonna tell the anecdote without telling you the movie, and you're gonna guess what the movie is before it's over.
I'm not gonna look it up. I swear to God, I'm not gonna look it up.
Okay. So he talks about how, and I'm doing a thing where I'm leaving major parts out of it.
Okay.
So he talks about how Rob Reiner, is very excited, and he's an actor as well, right? So he doesn't necessarily know. Yes. So he doesn't really think of the fact that he's giving line readings. He's just getting very animated and giving an example of what he thinks it could be. It's a line reading. but
Yeah.
he doesn't mean anything by it. And he said that he and his co-stars had a chance to get used to it. Like, at first, he was saying that when it first happened, he and Tom Cruise exchanged glances and were like, "Is this happening? Is this?" And they're like, "Yeah." So then they got used to it. And then the one of the biggest stars of the film came in to give a pivotal speech, Ben, and they
I
realized that
I am
he
nodding
hadn't.
because I now know
Yeah,
what movie you're talking about. But go on.
he hadn't had time to get used to it, and they were like, "He's gonna do it, and what's gonna happen?" Um, and so they're watching it, and he gives the most famous speech from this movie.
Yeah.
Comes in, delivers this famous speech, and says that he was 92% there on the first take. Absolutely what it is. And the scene ends, and Rob Reiner comes up to him and he's like, "Hey, this was great." He's talking about how this is excellent. Oh, can't believe it. And then Kevin Pollak says, if you had an aerial view, if you had a crane shot, you would have seen him step forward and Demi Moore, me, and Tom Cruise step back as he gives the line reading. And famously, at that time, Jack Nicholson takes a breath, looks at Rob Reiner, and goes, "Well, I guess I'm just not there yet."
Yeah.
Ben, what is the movie?
The movie is A Few Good Men.
Very, very good, Ben. Now it's time, of course, to play. Let's do the reverse. Think of an anecdote that you've heard about a film.
Oh, geez.
I know.
I haven't had time to prepare.
No time to prepare. Think of an anecdote. Don't tell me what the movie is. You can leave specific people out of it, if you want, but tell me the anecdote as best you can, and then I will try to guess what film the anecdote is about. Something that happened backstage, something that happened.
Since you mentioned hearing Kevin Pollak, I'm stalling because I'm trying to think of an anecdote. I heard Kevin Pollak tell that story on the Rich Eisen show, which is a like mostly a sports themed show, but he sometimes
I think I might have seen it on the same show, which I don't watch the show, but because I went down a Kevin Pollak rabbit hole, YouTube serves me up his content all the time.
Yeah.
I think Kevin Pollak is great.
He's an
Usual
interesting
Suspects.
cat.
Very good in The Usual Suspects.
I knew it wasn't The Usual Suspects because I was pretty confident Rob Reiner didn't direct that, but I couldn't remember who did.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
You don't think about Rob Reiner directing A Few Good Men. At least I don't.
Yeah. Say something else while I'm trying to.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you another little anecdote. This raccoon. Jennifer fact checker, Jennifer Pratt here on the podcast, made the garage into like a little like office for herself.
Yeah.
She has the podcasting pod, and then she also has a little office in the garage because we don't really have a room for an office here. Famously, my office is in the basement in the corner. But anyway, this raccoon came up and basically almost died in front of her. She says that it had distemper. I don't know what that is exactly. But it was dying, and it was in the garage, and we called animal control, and they said it would cost $450 for them to come and euthanize it and bury it. And we were like,
sounds like a lot. Yeah, you don't want to mess with rabies, though.
And the other thing was that there was a an animal shelter, not an animal shelter, wildlife refuge, an hour away that would take it. And she gave him a little blanket. And then I did something which I do not recommend the podcast do. And, if the podcast feels bad that I did this, don't worry. My wife already yelled at me about it. I gave it a graham cracker. And it got the graham cracker and it ate it. And then that made it excited enough or energetic enough that it tried to open up a can of off OFF, which wasn't cool. And so to distract it, I threw a Fig Newton near it, like away from where the off can was, so that he went to get the Fig Newton. So he ate a graham cracker and a Fig Newton. And I have to explain, when we were calling the animal control people, it wasn't because, oh, he's acting weird. He was like lying down, breathing,
right.
Like gonna die. But after having the graham cracker and the Fig Newton, when I went inside and came out again, he was gone.
Probably just too hot from the 111-degree heat.
Yeah, there was other stuff that was kind of weird about him. He had a sore in his leg, and he had these 2 white spots on his head, which could have been fungus or ticks or,
Oh, you might have seen
else.
Raccoon Zero.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, have you thought of an anecdote, Ben?
There was...
You seem like a man who thought of an anecdote.
I thought of one, and then I had to look it up to see to get the details right. And this is actually a pretty famous story. It's too bad that I can't come up with something more interesting. But there was a film, and you've probably heard this. There was a film filming in
Citizen Kane.
Yes, okay. Sir. You've got it. No, filming in Tunisia. So think about this. This film is filming in Tunisia. Okay. The director of this film brought in cases and cases of SpaghettiOs for his own meals because he didn't want to eat the local food. Now, and just when you get, I'm gonna keep going, but when you get it, go ahead and tell me what it is. So he only ate SpaghettiOs while this major motion picture was filming in Tunisia. The cast and crew got dysentery because they did eat the local food and drank the local water. The cast and crew getting dysentery led to actually one of the more memorable scenes in this film.
Got it.
What is it?
Steven Spielberg got the food. I didn't know that until you said that the crew got dysentery, and I was like, wait a second. And then the famous thing, famously, Harrison Ford, having dysentery, did not want to do a complex fight sequence, so he just said, what if I just shoot the guy? Which is what happened, which became a famous Indiana Jones thing.
Because they set it up, the guy comes in, he's doing all these fancy sword tricks, setting up a big-ass fight, and Harrison Ford just shoots him. Now, the rumor, when you first hear the story, it was, at least for me, it was presented to me that Harrison Ford improvised that moment. And now knowing how films are made, you're not going to improvise shooting someone during an elaborate, complex fight scene. That needs to be prepared.
So the what if I just shoot the guy? You can. I mean, that's the thing that I when I said that, I wasn't sure that it was actually his idea, but maybe the rumor that it was ad-libbed by him is that it was his. Maybe it was his idea, but the idea might have been off the cuff, but
right.
Famously again, Ben. Oh, here we go. We're going back and forth. Harrison Ford not in this film, but one of his co-stars was, and one of the more cool aspects of this film, something that I've mentioned to you before, in fact, I think maybe even on this very podcast, was introduced by one of his co-stars, and it was based on some sort of an acting exercise that this co-star used to do. Who was the co-star, and what was the thing that was in this film that I liked a lot?
Gosh, I have no idea. Well, Drunk is with us. Hey, Drunk.
Hey, Drunk.
Say it again. So Harrison Ford wasn't in this movie, but one of his Raiders.
No, he was in. He was in the movie.
Oh, Harrison Ford.
But this isn't an anecdote about him.
Oh, okay.
He's in this movie. Another one of his co-stars came up with an aspect of the film that I really liked, and it's based on an acting exercise that they used to do.
An acting exercise they used to do, and it's something that Harrison Ford did in this movie.
No, it's something that the co-star did.
Co-star did. Is the movie? I have no idea, so I'm just gonna start throwing out Harrison Ford movies. Is it part of the Indiana Jones trilogy?
It is not part of the Indiana Jones trilogy.
Is it part of?
I'm gonna give you a Phoebe. Phoebe.
Phoebe.
I'm gonna smelly cat. I'm gonna give you a freebie. Okay. It was in a series of movies. Maybe not the most famous Harrison Ford series of movies.
Oh. A series of movies. So how
many
is it?
How many movies make a series? Let's ask that question as well.
So here's my question: is it the way Edward James Olmos spoke in Blade Runner?
No, but you've hit upon the series.
Okay, so it is Blade Runner.
Yep.
One of his co-stars. Now I'm gonna try to guess who the co-star is. Is it Rutger Hauer?
No, it is not Rutger Hauer.
Is it Edward James Olmos?
It is not Edward James Olmos. No.
M. Emmett Walsh.
It is not M. Emmett Walsh.
Is it the gal whose name I can't remember, but she was in Splash? Daryl Hannah.
No, Daryl Hannah. No, it is not.
Is it the home again, jiggity jig guy?
No, it is
whose
not.
Whose name I can't remember.
He's
the guy who built the robots. How many other people are in that movie? Is it the guy? Is it the replicant
Ben,
we meet at
would
the
you
very
like
beginning?
a hint that will make you feel bad?
It's not that movie. It's the second movie.
It's the second movie, Ben.
God damn it. Was it Ryan Gosling?
It was Ryan Gosling.
All right. I saw that movie once, and I watched it after watching the first one again. So it was at the very end of a long Blade Runner night.
Have you seen the first one a lot?
A few times.
Yeah. Do you know the name of the test that they give to see if you're a replicant or not?
Oh crap! What's the name of the test? It's like the not Dunning-Kruger. That's a different thing.
Voight-Kampff.
Voight-Kampff. Yeah.
Okay, so that's to tell if you're a human or a replicant. Ryan Gosling's character is a replicant. From the get-go, we know that he's a replicant. There is a test that he does, like a kind of baseline test, and that baseline test was something that Ryan Gosling came up with. And one of my favorite things about that film, it's just a great little.
Right, I think I remember you and me talking about that moment at one point after I'd first seen it. Drunk wants me to give him credit for coming up with because he pegged that it was the Ryan Gosling film before I did.
Hey, haha, good one, Drunk. Very nice to know. Hey, this is Paul Goody asking Drunk, how you holding up in this heat wave?
Haven't heard you for a while. He also says that you look totally different than last time. You're a real life Clark. Actually, I'm quoting, bro, a real life Clark Kent.
Yeah. Hey, one of the things that always makes me worried is if I ever go on the run, there's no way to disguise myself because everyone is going to have like pictures of me looking exactly.
Right.
At least one time in my life, I've already looked like the disguise that I would come up with. So that's a problem.
I had this weird thing with my eye earlier today.
Hmm.
Um, it was like if you were standing, or yes, next to a bright light that had an oscillating fan in front of it, and then
Yeah.
looked away, the sort of like after image that would
Yeah.
persist in your vision. But it lasted a really long time. I was actually getting kind of worried because do I need to, is my retina getting detached or something? What I realized was, so there's a window next to my desk, and the leaves were blowing in the sunshine, and I
Oh,
had been
wow.
sitting there for like, you know, it was like 2 o'clock when I realized it, so it's been most of the day. It's gone away, but yeah, I had a brief panicked moment earlier. It's like, is my retina becoming detached?
You're old enough to remember this, Ben. Do you remember what it was like when you were watching a TV station uh, that wasn't completely tuned in? Like now, everything is really clear, but for a while when we were kids and stuff, you had snow that you would be
Yeah,
watching.
yeah,
The channel wouldn't be. And when you get done watching that bad image, uh, how everything that you looked at in your room looked crazy because it your brain was filtering out that snow. That's what I figure it would probably be like a little bit.
yeah. There's a weird sort of vertigo that also happens if you, like me, stay to the end of a movie to watch the credits.
Mm-hmm.
So you're watching this text scroll up for movies these days, probably
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes, and then the final, like, either title of the movie or production company or whatever scrolls up and then stops in the middle of the screen. But it feels like it's moving downward because
Yeah,
everything you've been watching text scroll up for the last 10 minutes.
absolutely. Yes, 100%.
Drunk
Um,
says it's smoking hot outside, and my air in my car broke. I'm riding around in a sauna. That's a shame.
oh no,
Uh,
that is too bad.
Keep yourself cool. And he talked about the snow. Back in the day, they had snow. Now we have buffering, which is more annoying, I find.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like one of the things that really always confused me when I was a kid is how TV looked great, but if you tried to do, so why couldn't computer graphics be as good as TV is?
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense to me as a kid. Now I understand it a little bit
There's a,
better.
I
But
remember
now
when
it is getting as good. So,
I remember when digital projection became a thing, and I think it was either the Phantom Menace or it was like the re-release of A New Hope. And your friend of mine, friend of the show, Stephen McCandless, went to go see one of these movies, probably at the Cinerama. And I remember him complaining that you could see the dots. That was the big complaint,
yeah.
is you can see the dots. And it's amazing how much we have become accustomed to the dots these days.
Now, one of the things that I do like for sure is going to Best Buy and looking at the next generation of TVs, right?
Yeah.
And there was one, I forget which TV it was, I should have written it down, but there was one where I was standing right next to it and couldn't see the pixelization.
Yeah.
Like it was the first time that was gone. And it was crazy. It
Did
was
you
really, really
you
cool.
you probably did when you were a kid, put your eye right up next to the TV and you can see the little
Oh
red
yeah,
and green and blue pixels.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
100% I did. One of the other things that I could do, and I don't know if you had this power or not, I call it a power. I could tell when a TV was on because I could
Just like
hear it.
in a room.
I could hear the screen. Yeah,
Ah, yeah.
being on. And my dad's like, it doesn't make a sound. I'm like, well, you can't hear it, but I can.
I don't.
And
I'm afraid. I mean, I'm sure. Like, I've had my TV and it's like a 35-inch, flat screen from 2005.
Yeah.
I'm afraid when it dies and I have to get rid of it. A of all, having to dispose a giant ass TV. It's not really that big compared to TVs of today. But also, like, I don't think I could buy one of those anymore. Just a dumb TV that doesn't have its own built-in streaming services. Yeah, apps.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I already have that. That I can plug in. I don't want that in the TV.
So one of the things
this.
I will tell you, I mean, and I know that we've talked about this before also.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. We know it.
Welcome to episode 391 of the GudeLaurance podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. But the big thing is that when you buy a TV, don't think about it in the showroom. Think about it in your house or apartment. Because one of the things I've noticed is that, you look at the TV and you're like, well, this one isn't that big. But if you compare it to the TV that you're replacing, it's bigger, that kind of thing. So it's worth looking into.
I had a friend who custom built a house. My friend did. His parents did. But
is this in your
my hometown? Yeah. And I remember in the my dumb 15-year-old friend wasn't going to build his own house.
Yeah.
I remember in the living room, there was a notch in the living room where the TV went. And thinking, what if you get a larger TV, larger than this notch you've built into the wall? Because it was very clean looking, right? It had like a cabinet below it, and I honestly can't remember what was above it. Probably nothing, or maybe just wall. But it was this is where the TV go. And yeah, I'm like, what if you get a larger TV? And he was like, not my problem, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to move out eventually. Yep. So yeah, this is something that I think about sometimes. I don't talk about work, so I'm trying to think about how to state this. I care about things that I have no stake in. Oftentimes, right? Like, and what I mean by that is,
you're a very empathetic person.
Well, I don't think so. What I mean is, like, I care about stuff that I have no, the serenity prayer, right? I can't change these things, right?
Yeah.
So I should just accept them, but oftentimes I cannot.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. It's going the other way.
That would drive me nuts.
Yeah, sure.
That TV being
much like a steering wheel on a pirate's belt buckle.
Driving me nuts. I feel as though we've talked about this ad nauseum, but something I will never understand is the ability of people to watch a movie in the wrong aspect ratio. I don't get it. It's one of those things of like, how you talk about sometimes being dumb and happy are kind of, because I'm sitting there going, how can you enjoy this? And they're like, will you please stop? I'm watching the film. And it's like, right, sure. I'm the one with the problem. That's the problem.
I went to go see one of the first new Star Trek movies at what they called an IMAX theater, but it wasn't like an IMAX theater. It was just like a larger format screen. Yeah. And it might have been, I think it was like Star Trek, the second one, not the first one that J.J. Abrams directed, but the second one. And it had sections in it that were filmed in IMAX. And so what it would do is the whole movie was in IMAX, only certain scenes. So it would start 16:9, and then for these scenes, it would expand north and south to be it looked like a 4:3 aspect ratio. It's probably 1:1. Don't know what it is, but the movie was constantly switching between these two aspect ratios, and I was going batty, and I was talking afterwards, and nobody else either cared or saw it.
Wow, that's insane. one of the things that happened with me and Jennifer when we were dating, I took her to see Inception in IMAX, and that
And yet
didn't
you're
go.
still together.
Yeah, that didn't go well. But the thing is that if I wouldn't take her criticism of it, if I was like, "You can't say bad things about Inception,"
Yeah.
then that would have been bad. But she did have the opportunity to make fun of it a lot, which worked out.
There's a thing happening in internet video where different social media services have different aspect ratios for their posts. So, let's say you want to share like a 16 by 9 video on Instagram, and I'm gonna make let's say an Instagram post sharing is 1-to-1. So your 16 by 9 video has these black bars on the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
And then you want to reshare that post from Instagram to Facebook, which has a portrait mode. So that 1-to-1 is getting shrunk down even more. So, and this happened recently. I clicked on, I can't remember. It was either on Instagram or on Facebook or freaking X, and I clicked on this video to watch it. I turned my phone sideways, and it was a 16 by 9 picture, but it was so tiny inside my phone screen because I had this large black mat around it. And I'm like, have we learned nothing? does nobody else care about any of this?
No one cares. It's insane. So one of the things that I think may happen, and when it happens, then we can say, hey, I said it. I think things might go back to being square. Like somebody is going to choose square, and people are going to go, this is dumb, but then other people will like it.
Didn't
or circle?
Didn't Wes Anderson just release a movie in 4:3?
Was that
Asteroid City?
Asteroid City? Maybe so.
I haven't seen it.
I'm talking about devices, though.
Oh, devices.
Yeah, either square or circular, something that is radially symmetrical. Will come out again. I feel like, I don't know if it's true or not, but who knows?
There are, like, I can't remember if it's Google. It's probably Google or Samsung have a flip phone, and I think that has 2 squares that are connected at the hinge.
Yeah. But the screen itself is foldable, so it's a full screen when you undo it. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, maybe it won't happen. But
I'm just not looking forward to the day when movie theaters are built in portrait mode.
Yeah, I wouldn't like it. For sure. VR might be a thing, eventually. No screen at all except for your own personal screens for a whole bunch of people sitting in an empty room, all going, wow. It is.
You have a you have a PSVR, right?
I do. Yeah.
When was the last time you used it?
I use it all the time, but I use it incorrectly. And what I mean by that is that I
wear it on my butt.
I wear it on my butt. That's it. I shout down to my ass, what's it like? You're in a field and there's pollen everywhere. You can see it. No, the thing that happens is Jennifer will play a game on PS4 and I will play the same game. We'll network in on my PS4 Pro with the VR headset, and I'll be using it as a screen. I don't use my the PSVR to do, like, I don't play Super Hot and stuff like that right now, like I used to. And the reason is because of my brain, I like to be doing 2 things at once. I like watching oh, hey, here's the question. Have we mentioned any struck property right now in any of this podcast? I don't think we have, right?
Struck property.
Like anything that you can't talk about because it is sort of violating the strike thing. I don't think
Oh,
so. I think all the stuff we talked about was old shows and stuff. I
I
don't think
mean
we mentioned anything new
that's a
coming out.
U guideline. We can. There's nothing about talking about. There's nothing against talking about current properties when the strike is going on. The only thing
Okay.
you can't do is just cross the picket lines to be a writer or actor. Don't do those things.
So on podcasts when I'm listening to them, apparently they can't promote
Oh yeah,
their
of course not.
shows.
No, actors and writers cannot actively promote their their projects.
But because
We
I'm not an actor
we are
or
not that. We are. I mean, you might be SAG-AFTRA still.
I'm not.
You're
I
not.
don't think I ever was. I
So
don't think I ever was.
let's say
I
you're
did have
Ryan.
representation,
Let's say
but I
you're Ryan
wasn't like
Gosling. If we brought Ryan Gosling on this show today, he would not be able to talk about anything that he's currently in that is playing in the theaters.
okay. Yes. All right. And yeah, I mean all those shows that we talked about, those are old. Those are old shows. Anyway, but it doesn't matter because we weren't in them. All right. Good, good, good. What was I going to say? Oh, so there's a new Zack Snyder film that's coming. I'm kidding. Uh the Blacklist, I'm in season 8 now, and Jennifer said something, and you know how it is. Like when I say no spoilers, it's different because I also think past the information I get. I believe, and this is spoilers for season 8 of the Blacklist. I think one of the main characters is going to die in season 8, and I'm betting that it is Special Agent Elizabeth Keene. And it's just because of an offhand comment that she made. So if
I'm
that
gonna
is
live
true,
to the end of this series.
no, an offhand comment that Jennifer made.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because we were talking about Elizabeth Keene, and then she said, "How many seasons are there?" And I said there are 10, and she goes, "Well, wait, how does that work if in season and then she stopped?"
Probably like
And I'm
looked at
like,
IMDb or something.
yeah.
I am. There's
So,
a thing that would happen with genre shows like zombie shows or
I
like
thought
this,
you were talking about a guy named John Rochelle, and I'm like, who's that?
like and
Now that's great. That's a
I'm
good
thinking
name,
of The Walking Dead specifically, but there are other types of shows where character deaths are sort of like a given, and they all sort of followed the same formula where if a show focused on one character for too long, like in the beginning of that
Yeah.
episode, you're like, okay, they're not making it to the end of this episode.
Yeah,
They're
especially
dying.
if they
They're
were a
dying.
famous person. But Ben, I take it back. It's not John Rochelle. It's of course Jean Rochelle, who's French.
Jean Rousseau.
JenRou
Jean.
JeanRou
Cheaux.
Yeah. Write it down, Ben. Write it down. Hello, it is me, Jean Rochelle.
Jean Rousseau.
Jean Rochelle.
Oh, so where we got sidetracked by
Yeah.
asking about Stark properties is when you're in VR, you like to do two things. Your brain
Me?
has to do two things at once.
Yeah, okay. So I like to watch The Blacklist and also play Toon Blast or whatever. I like to do two things at the same time. And then my brain can kind of switch between, whichever one is more interesting at the time. Whereas if I'm in VR, then I have to be there, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, I
But-
see. Yeah.
But the thing is, it is good. It actually trains me to do stuff. So if I actually get into it, I can get into it. Same thing with reading a book. If I actually start reading the book and get into it, I can read a book.
Yeah.
speaking about which,
I could read a book.
my biological dad is getting married in September in Chicago,
Are you going to attend?
and I am going to attend. It was going to be me, Betty, and Jennifer and Edward. We were all going to go,
Yeah.
but Betty has a band thing at the same time, and
Uh,
she's a senior. She's first chair, all that kind of stuff. We don't want her to miss any
of
of her
course.
band events. So I am taking the train. Now
Sounds
here's the
fun.
crazy bit. I'm taking the train from, Alton, which is near where I live, to Chicago. And then I am going from Chicago to another location that's about an hour's drive away from Chicago to, the actual venue where the wedding is.
Yeah.
But because of the way that all the train stuff works, I have a layover in the Chicago train station for 3 hours.
That's not so bad.
So I am going to get to my hotel at 11:30 at night.
That's kind of a drag.
Yeah. So I think it'll be okay. The thing I'm worried about is that they're going to give my room away to somebody else. I don't think that that's
No,
going to happen.
they don't. That doesn't happen.
So
there's a Drink Me song called "Drunk on the Train to Chicago" that Mike Doty covered, and I was just thinking like our listener drunk on the train to Chicago with you.
that is funny. That would be, and you could actually, I mean, the train that goes from St. Louis to Alton is the one that goes to Chicago. So technically, it could be possible if Drunk happened to be going to Chicago at that time.
Drunk is that
We
with us,
wouldn't even
so
know it. Well,
he'll have
actually,
to,
no, he could recognize me because I have.
Unless you change your look drastically one more time to
Yeah,
something
I don't-
you have not done before.
See, here's the thing, and I'll explain because this is true. I am somewhat of a vain person, right? My mustache is this color. This part of my beard is white,
Yeah.
and I can't stand the ununiformity of it.
Just
And
for
so
men.
I am.
They
And
make
then
products for you.
No, can't do that. And then also I'm losing my hair a little bit here, right? So I can't do the wizard look, at least right now, until my hair turns white, and then I might be able to go back to it. But so for right now, this is the most workable, because if you have this big thick mustache, the fact that your hair's thinning here is fine. It's a character.
You got
thing.
some. You got, if you said you're gonna let your hair grow out into more of like a fro, you look out. At least your hair's not dark colored, because when you turn
Yeah.
profile, I'm like, oh, Gene Shalit.
Hey, yeah, maybe Gene Shalit. I'm gonna go for Mr. Noodle. Like I said, that's my
I don't know who
my
Mr.
main
Noodle is.
Mr. Noodle, Ben, is the human man
The
who
human
Elmo
man.
tries to get to tie his shoes.
Ah.
And Mr. Noodle's trying, like, or imagine, if you will, Mr. Noodle is trying to put on headphones. I'm gonna take my headphones off for a second. And
So-
Elmo's like, okay, Mr. Noodle, put on your headphones. And then Mr. Noodle will go like that. And he's like, not like that, Mr. Noodle. And then Mr. Noodle will go like this. He goes, no, Mr. Noodle, no.
That's a really good Elmo.
Oh, wait. Sorry, my audio cut out. Let me see.
Yeah, you
Come
sound
on.
weird. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Okay. So, so the story is that this guy, I forget who. There's a stand-up comic, or else maybe this is in Reddit, or maybe this is on Twitter. Something like that, where there is a guy who was in a hotel who was trying to go to sleep and he couldn't. So the only thing that was really on was Sesame Street. And so he's watching Sesame Street, and Mr. Noodle is trying to tie his shoes or something, and he's doing it wrong. And Elmo's like, no, not like that, Mr. Noodle. And the guy said that at one point in time, from across the hall, he heard someone just yell, "God damn it, Mr. Noodle!"
Bob
Which I always
Odenkirk.
liked. That was the second thing. It's like, and that man was Bob Odenkirk.
And now you know the rest of the story.
Hey, did we already talk about the fact that someone did a remake of The Room?
A remake of The Room. Now you're not talking about The Disaster Artist, which is a movie about The Room.
Right. It's not that, but it is similar. It's a
Did Tommy Wiseau remake his own movie?
no. A different guy did a remake of The Room. And here's the crazy thing. Well, two crazy things. One is, for some reason, you're super loud now. I'm
wondering why,
headphones.
because you were messing with your headphones. And yeah, I can hear me.
Okay.
Do you have a volume knob on your headphones?
There might be a volume knob on my headphones, yeah. But
because
anyway, so how about now? Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you sound fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was messing around and I think I turned the volume up on my headphones. I think you're absolutely right. But so it's The Room with Bob Odenkirk as the Tommy Wiseau character.
Oh jeez.
And he tries to he's not doing a character, he's not like doing makeup or anything like that. He's just earnestly, in a heartfelt manner, trying to do the lines as written, he said. And he had a blast doing it. So
has this been
that's
released?
The idea.
I want to see this.
It has not been released, and that's why I think it's okay to talk about, because I'm not in it. But if you look hard enough, you can find a clip on YouTube of the "Oh Hi Mark" scene.
I think I've seen YouTube try to serve that up to me, and I'm going to reveal something about myself. I've not seen The Room.
I have also not seen The Room. I've seen The Disaster Artist, which is
I have
brand.
not seen that movie either.
You remember the thing that our friend Stephen McCandless has said about me, that there are many things that I haven't seen, but I've seen something adjacent to them, and so I still understand them. It's just like how I never saw Star Wars, but I read the Star Wars novelization, and so I was able to talk to kids about it. But every once in a while, there'd be a scene that was in the book that wasn't in the film, and so no one would have any idea what I was talking about.
Right.
But it was still pretty cool. And again, I must mention Greedo, especially now that I've mentioned that my brother broke his shoulder.
Bringing it back around.
Had a bunch of Star Wars action figures, and he had them in the Darth Vader case, I believe, where it was a case that looked like Darth Vader, or else it was branded.
Vader's
it was a branded
helmet.
case.
Yeah.
And he did a thing which a more cynical person would say that he fooled me, but I don't think so. He was like, I'll tell you what, you can play with Greedo. And I was like, okay, I'll play with Greedo. I like him. Because Greedo was green, right? Green was my favorite color. It's funny because for a long time I didn't have a favorite color. And then Betty said, you have to have one. So I picked green. And it turns out, remembering that green was my favorite color with Greedo, apparently green has been my favorite color for a while. So anyway, Greedo, green, I gave him a cocktail sword. The cocktail sort of, I gave him one of those, and he had adventures, and he could fly, and he could do all this stuff. And one of my my saddest memories was when, so I saw The Empire Strikes Back. It's one of the first films I saw in the theater. First film I ever saw in the theater was The Muppet Movie. Second one, I think it was the second one, was Empire Strikes Back, and I liked that a lot. Saw Return of the Jedi, and then Star Wars came out on video cassette. And of course, Ben, I had been playing with Greedo for all this time. Greedo had magical adventures. Ben, my first time seeing Greedo in the flesh. Hey, let's go, my man Greedo. All right, Here we go. Ready for the scene. Here he is. Oh, his first line. Oh, that's crazy. And what? Why? What? He's dead?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to break away from that. I mean, I've told that story a lot, but the thing that I may not have mentioned in this podcast before was I would read novelizations of books, right? Because I wasn't able to see the movie, and I'd talk to the thing about it, but I didn't get the phenomenon with Star Wars, right? I didn't get that Star Wars was a special case. And so I was very, as a young boy, I was very confused as to why my fellow classmates weren't as excited about the Shaggy DA as I was.
The Shaggy DA.
The Shaggy DA was a book
familiar.
About a Old English sheepdog, or a district attorney who would turn into an Old English sheepdog.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like, well, it's a movie. You know, it's like Ghostbusters or whatever, but it wasn't.
So
I didn't get to see Ghostbusters either.
I'm vaguely remembering. So the Shaggy DA, was that a sequel to the Shaggy Dog?
It was a sequel to the Shaggy Dog. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It also may be the thing where you might have seen this video clip where a sheepdog punches a guy in the face. And they do it in a really weird way. It looks super fake, but also very cool.
I do kind of want to go back. I do kind of, every once in a while, I get an urge to revisit some of the movies that I really loved as a kid. A lot of those old like Walt Disney pictures. Like one of them is, when I was a kid, I watched The Cat from Outer Space over and over.
Yep, I remember The Cat from Outer Space.
Now it's probably like super problematic and sexist.
That you don't know about until now. Yeah, exactly. Oh,
the cat's a racist.
I had a friend of mine, I'm not going to identify who that friend was, said, do you remember The Silver Streak? You should see that. It's a pretty good film. I saw it again and it holds up. I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll watch it. Now, here's a good thing about The Silver Streak that I will say. It takes place on a train.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting.
Gene Wilder, and is that the Gene Wilder?
Richard Pryor. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, you know, there's the stuff that takes place on the train and the stuff that takes place off the train. And it's really weird how they're two separate worlds, right? Because the action on the train is still happening even when Gene Wilder is off the train.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. But also Gene Wilder, blackface in the film. Now, it's an interesting thing because it doesn't go well for him.
Right.
Everybody hates it. You know, so it is a step in the right direction. Also, it's Richard Pryor suggesting to him that he does it, which is another weird thing.
That movie was what, like 1977?
It's still not great.
That's not an excuse, but it was like weirdly more wildly accepted back then than it is today.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that anytime that somebody says, "Hey, let's revisit this whole thing," it always makes you a little nervous. Yeah. It's just like the Spike Milligan Muppet Show. I think I mentioned this to you before. Spike Milligan Muppet Show was something I remembered vaguely as a kid as being really funny. I'd never seen it. I talk about it. Never seen anything like that Spike Milligan guy. He was crazy, which is all true, but it's also the one where they celebrate the nations of the world,
right? Which
sounds like a good thing, but in practice did not turn out well. No. And it's too bad. So luckily I've watched it now and I can stop telling people that it's my favorite episode of the Muppet Show.
Yeah, because you know they're gonna say, "Oh, I bet you that one part with the racist Muppets is Paul's favorite part,"
and they would be right. Up until 1975, when I realized as a 2-year-old, hey, wait a second, not so good. So no. But anyway, Ben, the big thing is that we all are learning and we will continue to learn until our deaths. And isn't that great? Isn't it wonderful?
Sounds like a good wrap up for this week's show.
Speaking about wrap up, my name is Paul, and I'm here to. So anyway, thanks you, Ben. Thanks you, Ben.
Thanks you, Paul.
And keep it wrong. How's it happening?
Keep
Thanks
it wrong. I'll talk to you